Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Lightning Developers Meetup. We're excited to update you on another month's progress in the Lightning Network and more new projects, new developments, and also have a great speaker for you as well. So a lot to look forward to.
Cool. Hey, everyone. What are we up to today, Ben? Like, what are we?
As usual, we're starting with 30 minutes of news, and then we'll have our speaker.
Great.
And so on.
So I'm the news, right? I've got the news. Okay.
That's right.
Great. Okay, cool. Are you gonna run the linky things?
That's right.
Okay,
I'll be running
cool.
the links. They'll be up on the screen.
Right. Okay. Cool. And then if you wanted to follow along, I've got I tweeted out our list of links. It's on my Twitter. I don't know if it's on the Austin BitDevs Twitter quite yet, but it'll definitely be there soon, if not already. Awesome. Cool. So I thought I'd start us off with a little bit of kind of some interesting stuff sort of happening at the spec level. Kind of threw this together, not last minute exactly. We'll see how many of these links we get through. I think there's about 25 of them, if I had to guesstimate. Cool. Oh, so first up, Dusty executed the first mainnet splice channel, which is super exciting. Dusty is a local Austin native. What is not local, but Dusty's here. He's here, which is cool. Yeah, so it's cool to see stuff happening in Austin. What is, Dustin, do you want to say anything about what splice is? Or
Sure.
do we have mics and stuff, or are we?
We do.
Sorry.
Over here.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and also there's more info on, Dustin also did a longer presentation on splicing at Bitcoin Plus last month, so.
Cool. Okay, so how many people here are developers? Is it everybody almost? Most people? Okay, who has their own Lightning channel? Okay, it's half. Okay, so for those that don't know, a Lightning channel is the main part of Lightning that makes it work. And Lightning channels are a thing, and for a long time when you made a channel you couldn't resize it. And splicing lets you resize it, is the main thing. And it turns out when you do that, there's a lot of other cool side ramifications that come out of that. And I did the first real mainnet splice there, and we're going to release the experimental version in 2 weeks. TM. Maybe.
Cool, that's cool. So as part of getting splicing in, there's, I put up a PR on the spec repository.
Oh, right.
Sorry, next slide.
Go.
Yeah,
Very
cool.
good.
Yeah, so I thought this was kind of funny. I don't know why I thought it was funny. So I put up this so when you splice, you're basically closing one channel and opening a new one, but you kind of need everyone on the network to pretend it's all the same channel is one of the things that you're sort of trying to make everyone do. So one proposal for how to do this is to just make everyone wait 12 blocks before they forget about a channel. So when it closes, you just wait 12 blocks, and then maybe you'll see a new channel come out and kind of stitch them together as a splice. The reason you do that is that you can, that way you can keep sending payments to these channels as they're splicing, which is one of the cool things about doing a splice. So you can resize a channel and keep sending payments through it all at the same time, but you need people to not stop sending out payments for that channel. So one of the proposals is to wait 12 blocks before forgetting. There's then so then I put up this PR, and then we had some mailing list discussion, and I think it got kicked off. I don't think there's anything on the, I don't have it. I guess.
Yeah, so this is about synchronizing the Bitcoin gossip with the Lightning gossip. Sort
of. There's no Bitcoin gossip, though. What's the Bitcoin gossip there?
Well, the block propagation and so
Oh,
on.
that's true, yeah, okay. Yeah, block propagation. Yeah, so then there's a lot of conversation about what's the best way, how reliable is gossip? Is it reliable? And you're well, you use gossip to figure out where to send payments anyway, so if it isn't reliable, then you're gonna have trouble. You're gonna have a bad time for any kind of sending any sort of payment versus it won't just be a splice that you won't send a payment down that route because you think it's closed. There's a lot of things you'll probably have problems with if you're not getting up-to-date gossip. So anyways, I thought it was kind of cool. I didn't actually put I should have put the spec, I'm sorry, the mailing list link in here as well, but I did not. Yeah. Cool. Okay, but then it's kind of funny. So we had this long discussion about whether or not we should delay the channel edges, and then right next to this pull request in the spec thing is add a grace period for older channel parameters. I think this one went in without any discussion. Everyone's just yeah, gossip takes a while to propagate. We should probably like let whatever the old state was stick around for a while. So it's just kind of funny to me that like one of them is like, they're both kind of proposing to do the same thing. One of them has to do with like old channel updates, and the other one has to do with whether or not you consider a channel closed. One of them was like, act immediately. The other one was like, we got to think about this, which I thought was just kind of funny. That there's similar ideas, but they had different responses because people have different opinions about different things. It's fine. Okay, cool. Up next was, let's see, I had a denial of service. Okay, so I think this is like part of, so last month we had one of the first in-person spec meetings that we had in a while. The one before that was in Zurich in October, so I guess it wasn't forever ago, but this was kind of the first one that we had a lot of people from all around the world there, just because, you know, COVID made traveling really hard for a little bit. So one of the things that we talked about there, and this is kind of, this mailing list post I think was in June, but it talks about the Oakland Dev Summit. And so it's kind of this interesting idea, and it kicked off this long discussion around how to do denial of service mitigations for onion messages. I'm gonna be honest, I can't remember exactly how this one works. But basically it's like rate limiting onion messages and send back a message. This is a proposal to whenever you get too many onion messages, you tell someone that you're starting to drop their messages, which is a thing. Yes.
I didn't follow this, so I'm not sure, but I know. Am I correct in thinking that the resistance to wanting to do the rate limiting by like actually charging for it was just that makes it more complicated? I didn't read through this, sorry. So I'm just curious.
This is not about paying for messages. Mm-hmm. This is about when someone sends you 2 messages, how do you let them know that you're no longer relaying their messages? And your question is about...
I just think a while ago, Lalu had written something about rate limiting via like actually charging for relaying messages. And I think, I just didn't read through this, but I think that I heard that there was resistance to that because it just complicates things. I don't know.
Yeah, part of what Lalu proposed included a proposal to use AMP. My understanding is that some of the pushback is that AMP hasn't been fully spec'd either, so he was like proposing we use things that haven't been finished, so to speak. So that was like, at least that was like my reaction to it. I think like the other part is as soon as you start paying for things, it's like, why isn't that a payment? So at what point are you doing a payment versus at which point are you doing a message? And it's really easy right now. There's a message and then there's a payment, and they're 2 different things. So, yeah. Right. Another thing that tends to come up a lot, I don't have a link for it, but there's also like, at some level you start to get into what's the difference between a failed payment and a message is another thing, and currently on the Lightning Network you do not pay for failed messages. So the proposal with onion messages is like, and payments are a lot more, they take a lot more system resources, like trying to make an HTLC, I should say the HTLC message is a lot more heavy in terms of system resources, whereas sending little onion messages is not as much. Onion messages don't require like disk writes and that sort of thing. So the idea is like if your people can send messages through failed payments, might as well give them a way to send messages that doesn't require as much, whatever you call it, system resources.
Yeah, I could also imagine you run into a problem where you have it's recursive payments. You have every message requires a payment, requires a message, requires a payment, and it's, turtles all the way down.
Turtles all the way down, yeah. So you guess you have to draw a line somewhere. But then when you have onion messages, you do have problems with like, what if someone sends you too many? And it's like, well, what if we just stop forwarding those messages for a little while, is one of the solutions. So that's cool. If you want to read more, there is a whole long discussion about it on the mailing list. That was just the first one. And then the other last thing I kind of had from the spec that I thought was pretty cool is one of my teammates in SIGIBS has been working on L2 proposal, and I think he's looking at doing like his first, so L2, for those of you who aren't familiar, not to be confused with layer 2, ELTOO. This is a proposal to update how state for HTLCs is stored basically, and what happens in the case. So most of us are familiar with lightning channels. One of the kind of cool things about a lightning channel is that It's got this idea that like two people off chain can kind of remember what their balances are. They don't have to tell everyone in the network, right? That's like the brilliance of like off-chain payments, is that you can kind of talk between two people and sort of remember what you are, and you sort of have ways of like trusting sort of that they'll always do the right thing. But in the case that they don't do something or there's a disagreement, this is like Lightning had this whole new idea that was like, oh, well, like we'll use the chain as like the arbiter of justice, right? Or like the court. So the on-chain will be the court, and if there's Lightning channels or contracts, and if there's ever a disagreement, you'll just take it to the chain. So L2 is a proposal for how to change the justice system, so to speak, for Lightning, so that whenever there's a contract dispute or whatever, when you take it to chain, there's just like a slightly different way that you end up at a resolution. It's a little bit more like arbitration, I think, than like criminal court.
Right. Instead of a punishment, you have a different way of tracking things.
You have a
to
whole
prevent- you just
conversation,
eliminate
yeah.
possibility.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a little more. Anyway, so he's been tracking. He's got like a whole issue tracker where he's keeping up with what his progress is, what he needs to do, how things are moving along with his like drafts and stuff. So if you wanted to follow along on what's happening on L2, there is now a dashboard, which is pretty exciting. And also join, I guess, hashtag L2 on libera.chat, which is IRC. So that's cool. Cool. Okay, so then we had some like little project things and stuff that I wanted to chit chat about. Oh, okay. So this is kind of cool. So you've got do you have the pull request on LND?
I think so. Well, I have it in the order of those,
I see.
links.
Maybe things got rearranged. Anyway, so Yoast is an engineer at BottlePay. We'll actually talk about another project he's been working on here shortly. But back in, wow, this is from 2022, but this is from, no, this is exactly, did I mix all these things up? No, okay, I'm sorry. I like totally got things wrong. Okay, we're talking about inbound routing fees. So Yoast had this proposal, I think a long time ago, though this one's from July, that, maybe this is new. Anyways, so there's this proposal like with routing fees. So right now, when you have money in a channel, the only person who charges for how much to charge to push the money to the other side is the person who owns those funds, right? So if I have a Lightning channel and I've got like, I don't know, 100,000 sats on my side of the channel, and I wanted to push it to the other, someone wants to like use that 100 sats, which are mine, right? Because they're on my side of the channel, they're my balance. I have a little like rate card sort of thing that's in the channel update. It says, you must pay me, I don't know, like 10 sats, and I will push some sats to the other side, right? So in order to use my money in my channel to make a payment to the other side of the channel, you have to pay me for it, right? So that's how Lightning works today. Yoast had this idea, and I feel like he's been floating it around for a while. I don't know why this is like a new mailing list post, but there's this idea that you could also charge someone, you could also have someone pay you to use liquidity, which isn't yours. It's the other person's in the channel, so that when a payment goes through, you would like get a discount or pay a little extra based on using the other person's. Basically, you could set a rate for liquidity in the channel which doesn't belong to you, so to speak. I understand that he has made a pull request for this in LND. I don't know if it's actually, that's it, yeah. Add inbound routing fees. It's still open, so it hasn't been merged. Doesn't look like there's any comments or anything on it yet, but it's kind of a cool idea. I'm gonna be honest, I haven't sat down and like figured out exactly, yeah, Warren has a comment.
Is there any talk about negative fees as well?
I have not put a mailing list post about it yet, hopefully in the next week or two. But no, there hasn't been any discussion about negative fees, yeah, on the mailing list and stuff. Yes?
I had the same question when I saw that PR. I'm excited for your mailing list post.
About
Negative fees.
negative fees, yes. There's nothing has been posted on the mailing list yet. That I know of. Wait, that's not true. I think Zeman had a post about negative fee stuff a while ago, a couple weeks ago. Yeah. Okay, yes. Okay, so inbound routing fees, that's a cool thing. Next up was this like project that Ben Carmen wrote, who's a Austin local. I calling people natives. I don't know, a local Austinite called Trans LND. This was a project that came out of the hackathon at Bitcoin Plus last month. How many of you guys managed to make it out to Bitcoin Plus? So a bunch of people. Awesome. Great to see you all back today. Yeah, so what's really funny, so this is pretty cool. What it does, he's not here, is he? Okay. What it does is it lets you, so every time you create every time you create a Lightning invoice, it uses a different pub key. So when you send someone your invoice, it tells them you're a different node on the network, right? One that they like can't find probably in the routing graph, so to speak. So this way, like, it kind of makes it more private who you're trying to pay, because it doesn't tell them that, oh, I'm paying this Lightning node. It's like, oh, it could be any random like pub key thing, which is pretty cool, which I thought was kind of funny. I wonder if this was in response to what's the next thing? I wonder if this was a response to, so what's the next, like, can you go to the next, like, thing? Yeah, so a few, I think at the beginning of last month, Tony G, another local Austinite, did some work trying to figure out where all the hidden channels are. He wasn't using invoices though, so I don't think that this would actually help hide where your node is. He's just probing for, Tony was probing for hidden channels, or unannounced channels, I should say, which you do by making a like invoice and or you make a payment and try to pay a node and see what errors they send back.
Yeah, so this is particular to invoices and not, for example, to gossip, right?
Yeah.
You have to have a stable kind of identity of your channels and whatnot.
Yeah. And that probably uses like route hints or something to get it to you. So you're probably in the invoice anyway, because since people aren't able to find that node, they'll have to use the little hint that is your ID in the invoice. So it depends on how much signal people decide a routing hint is worth, so to speak. So cool. Anyways, that's kind of fun. I'm gonna skip the next one. I don't know what that is.
All right.
Cool. So the next up, Bottle Pay, another Yoast project. I think Yoast is based somewhere in Europe. So they added, so there are two things that they did. One is they launched Multiplexer, which we'll talk about on the next slide. But this is them adding stateless invoices to Multiplexer. Stateless invoices is an idea. Okay, this is what I got confused about last time with the inbound routing fees. Yoast had this mailing list post back in September of 2021 about stateless invoices. The whole idea behind stateless invoices is that you're able to basically, as a receiver of a payment, you don't have to keep track of all the invoices you've handed out to people. You give them enough data so that when the request to like receive the payment comes back to you, you can like figure out kind of who it is. They send you like some data along with the payment that lets you figure out who it was and kind of why they were paying you. And the really cool, the reason why this is nice and like kind of cool when you add it with a multiplexer is that like invoice data, so one thing, depending on what your service is, people could just request a bunch of invoices from your node, right? Like if you're using like LNURL to like get new invoices and stuff, basically like then you have to keep track of every invoice that you said that you could possibly receive, right? Because then if someone tries to pay you money and you've like forgotten about it, you won't be able to accept that payment. But someone might be able to like spam your database, right, by adding all these invoices that they're never planning on paying. So stateless invoices is kind of I think a fairly elegant way around it. It's pretty cool when you add it with a multiplexer, which was the other project that they just announced like last week. Which is like, yeah, so does anyone know what the multiplexer is? Does someone else want to explain? I don't know if there's anyone in here that worked on it. No, okay, cool. I will talk a little bit about multiplexing. So the whole idea with multiplexing is like right now if you run a Lightning node, you know that your Lightning node, like in order to send and receive payments, they kind of have to all be sent to the same node. And so if for some reason your node goes down, you don't have like a backup. It's really hard to have like another node that can also receive payments that were meant for you, right? So this multiplexer makes it such that you can kind of have like this, like these nodes, a bunch of nodes that can get, any of these nodes can get a payment that's meant for you and any of them can accept it on their behalf. So if one of them goes down or you have like server problems, your service can stay online because you've got like some redundancy in the nodes that are able to accept payments on your behalf. And so multiplexer is like the way of, is one way of doing it. It's kind of cool though when you combine that with stateless invoices though, right? Because then you have like kind of a system where all of these like nodes can accept invoices and you don't have any data they have to go look up, right? As soon as they get the invoice, they're able to kind of figure out if they can accept it or not, which is pretty.
Is there also a potential privacy benefit of linking together various nodes in this way?
It's not something I've thought very hard about, to be honest. I think it uses the same, so earlier we were talking about the route hints, right? So TransLND actually is like a very similar it uses, I think, a very similar sort of idea, in that like whenever you ask someone to pay you, well, it'd be a little bit different, but you basically for multiplexer, you would say, okay, pay me like, node ID like A or whatever. But then you'd give like a list of route hints, and those route hints would all be your multiplex servers that any one of them could like go to. And so you kind of use the the route hints as a way to tell it which.
Right. So they're all linked. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. I think is my understanding. I need to dig into it a little bit, so like don't take that as gospel. But maybe someone is watching on the internet, and I'll wake up to a tweet thread tomorrow from Yoast to watch the live stream later, correcting me on it. So that would be great. Cool. Okay. Other big thing is LND 0.15 got out. It looks like at the end of June. I just kind of took the top level things off their blog post. It looks like this adds the ability to create and spend from taproot addresses. This is really cool. I don't think so. As far as I know, that at least like on the spec level, we don't have like taproot channels yet, but the ability of having a wallet that can spend and receive taproot addresses is definitely a step in the right direction. I think they have MuSig2 experimental support, which would be one of the things that you need in order to do taproot channels, which is pretty cool. There's some really cool stuff that we can start getting as soon as we start getting taproot channel outputs. So this is like definitely on the forefront of being able to do new, cool, exciting stuff in terms of like privacy hiding for PTLCs and that sort of stuff. It looks like their database space reduction of 95%, wow, by reducing state stored in revocation logs for new data. So I think that's just talking about the new data stuff. I did have a question about whether or not, I don't think that's the move to SQL 3. We had a note last month that they were moving to SQL 3. I don't think these are related.
Correct. Boomer. I'm being a boomer, sorry. Correct, not related. This was just because LND did not remove redundant data previous to this, so we just kept everything in the database. And so this prunes out a bunch of the redundant data for all future payments. In 15.1, we should have in pruning data for all past payments as well. And then the SQL stuff is, yeah, probably 16.
I see, cool. Do you? I also have one thing, and then if you've got anything else to add, I only had the top level stuff. There were 50 contributors to LND, and I just wanted to see if there was anyone in the room that had contributed to this version of 15. Okay, there's decent odds. All right.
Dang, yeah, that would have been really cool. One other thing I think is really cool, just because there's been a lot of talk about pathfinding. If you go back to where you just were, Ben, I thought this was just a cool thing where there's more. We added an option where basically you can toggle and arrange whether you want to optimize for fees or optimize for speed, which is just, I think, a cool developer setting. I know there's been like talk on the mailing list right now about potentially paying higher fees or being slower to optimize for more privacy. So that was like a neat little option. And then if you scroll down just a little bit more, oh yeah, just more stuff that you just talked about with the Lightning multiplexer, continuing to add more features to the HTLC interceptor, which a lot of that work has come from Yoast to bolster that. So that's been cool to see an outside contributor, bring stuff in that gets merged.
All right. Congrats on the release.
Yeah, that's big. Yeah, you didn't have your hand up there, Ryan, and the 50 people are like, okay, yeah, yeah, okay. So the next two things were, there's two kind of, I don't know about the LND Connect thing. So the first one was JB55 has been working on this thing called Commando, which on top of you've built this like project called LNLink. No, that's the right one.
All right.
If you can click on the website though, I think it's the lnlink.org thing, just because I'm like, no. I don't know.
It's not.
Was it not going?
Right
yeah, but LNLink's pretty cool. It's easier to see if you can see his the Wi-Fi went down. I see. I understand.
No, it's on the wrong Wi-Fi.
I see. Okay. It's coming back. But LNLink is like this kind of cool way that you can basically make a URL that will directly connect to using like the little service that JB55 has put up on the web, I guess, as you can create a payment link that when you click it will, I didn't actually play with this. Maybe I should have. But it'll let you basically create like a URL link that will go fetch an invoice from someone's Lightning node anywhere with Lightning Network, but the Lightning network node that it's getting the invoice from doesn't have to be running HTTP server. It just has to be online, like it just has to be up and running like a normal Lightning node has to be. So what's really cool about that is you like can basically use LN Link to make little payment links for your node, and you don't have to like change anything about your node. You just have to like generate something. Basically, like on LND is macaroons, on Core Lightning we have something called Commando with runes, because Rusty thought the macaroon paper was a little extra and didn't need max, so he took them off, and now we call them runes. So Core Lightning has, Core Lightning has runes. And as of hopefully next release, we've got a big PR up to add that to Core Lightning, so it'll ship with Core Lightning, so everyone will have the ability to generate runes, which would then let you be able to use something like LN Link really easily. So that means you could have like a link that people could buy things off your website or pay for tickets to an event or whatever, and your Lightning node, wherever it is in the world, wouldn't have to be like running HTTP stuff. It would just have to be on the Lightning network, and it could send and receive messages that let it generate invoices.
Yeah, just a point of information that you can generate LN links here, but you can also self-host, so that's more private and secure, I imagine.
Yeah, that makes sense. Cool. But what's also cool is that LND has a thing that I think is fairly similar called Lightning Node Connect Web, and they recently launched. So this is not the same as Commando, but very similar, I think. Lightning Node Connect, which is a way that you can connect to your Lightning node, I believe, over the web. Ryan, do you have more details on that? Is that?
Yes, so specifically how this works is the cryptography is beyond me, apologies, but basically you have your node, there's then a proxy server in the middle, and then there's your browser. And so there's some magic cryptography that happens between your node and the proxy server, like mailbox is created on the proxy server, which then you can connect to from the browser using like a little magic link, 10-word kind of phrase. The really cool thing about this is, of course, the team took tons of pains and care to make sure that everything is super private, everything is end-to-end encrypted. The proxy server is all open source, so anybody can stand one up if they want to offer this as like a service. The dominant use right now is we have it implemented for our terminal website, so that's how you can connect to your node and manage it from the browser. Also really excited just about kind of more people playing with this. It was cool, like I think within a day of this being launched, we already had an external contributor like hacking with it and implementing it on the website, which is really awesome. Just in general, excited for people making it easier and more accessible to play with your node from the web. So this and Lightning Link are awesome.
That's some cool stuff. How are you doing on time?
We've got 6 minutes.
Okay, great. Cool. So let's talk through ZeroConf really fast. We just merged it into Core Lightning, which is, I guess that's the thing. The next link, though, is a longer discussion from John Cantrell, the maker of Sensei, about what are ZeroConf channels, some motivations behind them. I feel like he's kind of responding to I'm not a big ZeroConf fan, I have to say. I feel like it was a mistake, but we added it to the spec anyway, which is cool, I guess. It's in there now. I think there's a couple other implementations that are also adding ZeroConf. It was much requested by people that sell Lightning. I was gonna say, like people who, like Breeze, basically, who has a bunch of channels, or Async was, I think, a big person. I think they wanted it also.
Yeah, on the product side, a big problem is you have drop off if you introduce delay, if someone's onboarding on your product, they won't be able to get into it. Whereas I think there's legitimate concerns about ZeroConf, but also it's a question of like how much is being risked and how much is being wagered, right? So the scale of the payment can be metered, right? So in theory, you could limit the amount that's spent over ZeroConf.
Yeah, I think the thing about ZeroConf is we go back to like the thing I was talking about earlier about how Lightning channels are contracts, right? And you kind of have this contract, and if there's a disagreement, you're able to go to chain, and like the chain is the final judge who decides who gets what kind of thing. ZeroConf is basically like starting and getting into a business relationship without having your contract finalized. And so if something happens before
optimistic commerce.
Yeah. So in the chance that everything works out great, You didn't have to go through that whole contract negotiation phase, and you can get started doing business right away because you just kind of shook hands and it's great. But if something goes horribly wrong, then there's no courts you can go to. You kind of just have to like work it out among friends or not, or maybe hopefully the person that you did the zero comp with, because if not, like it's just there's no guarantees.
Anyway, now it should be an option available for your products and whatnot.
Yeah, it's true though. Yes, it is now an option on correlating. And I think other people have merged it. I just that was like the easiest one for me to grab. So next up we have some appy things. Yay! First up is LN Markets launched a new 2.0. They have a whole new UI which looks pretty slick. Does anyone know anything about LN Markets and want to talk to the projects? Great. Okay, moving on to the next thing. This is cool. Podcasting 2.0 got covered by 9 to 5 Mac, which is not. So I find this notable because this is not a Bitcoin or Lightning focused publication. It is a kind of general computing, I guess Macintosh mostly focused thing. And they did a whole thing on Lightning Network and value for value, paying in sats for podcasting, etc. So it's cool to see the podcasting and Lightning payment ecosystem breaking out into larger media consciousness.
Yeah, it's an interesting example of. Go ahead. Yeah, so it's an interesting example of the use case garnering interest on its own account, and that's an example of the product market fit happening. Yeah.
I'm curious if other people noticed several hundred single sats going over your node recently, and how you feel about this.
Do you think it was from the podcast? It was from the podcasting stuff, like streaming payments?
I have no idea where it's coming from or where it's going or why. But yeah.
Sounds like those onion messages. I mean, the onion payments are working. Yeah, you don't know where it's coming from.
So an example of an app that works on this basis is called Fountain, and it's linked from the article as well. I haven't tried it myself, but there it is.
That's cool. Cool. Other thing is Blue Wallet now supports LN URL auth, which I guess, and Loft for Lightning Network withdrawals, which is cool.
What's that? Questions?
Yeah, quick question about Fountain. So is it actually streaming sats over the Lightning Network, or are you just custodying your funds with their app and then it's just doing internal accounting?
My understanding, according to the article, not having looked at the code, is that it is streaming and that you can link it to whatever wallet.
So are they streaming in real time, or are they just grouping payments and then sending bulk payments?
I believe most people are doing payment. I think the original one was a payment per minute, but I haven't checked.
Payment per minute. Okay.
That's fun. That's cool.
I know it's not per millisecond. I don't know if it's
Switch over to LN Cal. Yeah.
I had trouble reaching the website. So
Did you not have the? Oh, they have such a pretty website.
the problem is.
Is it not
it's-
loading?
I think it was earlier. It was blocked.
Oh, there it is.
Now it's
Okay.
open. Oh.
All right. This is also really. They have a pretty website. This is LN Cal. So I don't know how many of you know Calendly. This is Calendly, but with Lightning. So now you can get paid to. I think that my understanding is right. You can get paid for people to.
Add calendar entries to your calendar.
Oh wow, yeah. So pay to hang out with someone on their calendar. That's pretty cool. With
I'm into that. What's your price?
booked and paid in Bitcoin. And then the last one I had is yeah. Let's talk later. That sounds like a great project to try out. That sounds good. Okay, I'm going to highlight, I think, 2 more things. I thought this was cool. Sphinx Chat, the Sphinx Chat one with the independent validated Lightning signer device. So they had a device that they were launching, Sphinx team did, that they were, allows you to run a hosted Lightning node. So I think they're talking about, I could be wrong about this, well, hosted node which keeps private keys truly private. So I think the idea is that you can run basically it's a real HSM for your Lightning keys, and so your node is somewhere in the cloud, and your actual keys that own and control the Bitcoin that is on your Lightning node is on a physical device that you can have at home. And they're using the validated Lightning Signer project such that when the server, which is managing kind of like your routing graph and like all the database stuff and all the payment history, et cetera, whenever you want to move money on your node, it has to send a message to the little device that you have wherever you in the world. And so the whole idea behind that is that they can use a validated Lightning Signer device so that whenever they get a message from the server, they can validate that that is like a good thing that they want to send, et cetera. So it's cool that someone has actually like built the hardware stuff and moving forward with that. Finally, I guess I've got two more things. One is that Zeus 6.5 is out and supports sending and receiving to Taproot addresses if you have, I think this is LND. So they've like built on top of the LND thing. So that's all cool and exciting that Taproot is like kind of burrowing its way through the layers of UI and UX to get to you, my friends, which is great. And apparently Brand Carmen, who is a Austin local, is now a contributor to Zeus. So that's pretty cool. It looks like they've got a whole list of things that they added to Zeus. So if you're a Zeus user or a soon-to-be Zeus user, I think Zeus is a kind of like an app that lets you control your Lightning node from afar. So that's cool. So you can have it on your phone and do stuff. Node is somewhere else. And then finally, I did a presentation to Core Lightning on Friday as part of Base 58 Encoding Summer Series. If you want to check it out, it's on the web. We also have a replit that you can use for getting started on a CLN node, which Cody put together. This is a like ongoing series that we're going to do. So we're going to have one on Fediment this Friday at like 10 in the morning on the internet, open to everyone. So
That's really cool. Thanks.
yeah. So if you want to check out what's going on with Fediment and all the cool, random, weird crypto that I hear it has like packed inside of it, I think Eric himself will be doing the presentation live on the internet. Part of the reason we're running this series is to try and get more people who want to start contributing to projects, like do a walkthrough of how the project works, where the different like parts of the code base are. On mine, we actually like added a couple things to the actual project, and then we fixed a bug, which was kind of fun. I don't know what they're going to do on Fediment, but I think it's going to be very oriented. The whole idea of the series is oriented towards people that want to start contributing to projects. So we've asked people to kind of do like intro walk-ons and stuff, which is cool.
And you can check it out on Eventbrite as
Yes.
linked.
Yeah, and it's got most of the stuff up there. More calendar stuff coming soon, but yeah, cool, great.
All right,
Thank you, everyone.
that
Yeah.
does it for the news and announcements.
Yeah.
Thank you. Now we have Warren Tagami here to talk about his project.
Yeah. Okay. I'll move off.
Okay, there we go.
Hello? Okay. Hi, I'm Warren Togami. I am at Blockstream, and I'll be giving a presentation about peer swap for your Lightning node. Oh, okay. Yeah. And go over various like tips and tricks to better secure and make your own Lightning node more reliable. So my background is actually with Linux operating system development, and I worked at Red Hat on Fedora Linux from a long time ago. And more recently, I worked on Bitcoin and now Lightning adjacent project. And I'm a big user of CLN myself. Okay, so this is most of the older presentation. I'm going to skip through most of it, but the idea is that Like if you use the CLN summary plugin, it'll show you a text picture of all of your channels. And if the balance is on your side of the channel, it's on the left side. If it's on your peer side of the channel, then it's on the right side. And what often happens is that like there is a natural, I call it pressure, where all of the sats want to go in one particular direction, and then it gets stuck that way. So anyone that has run a Lightning node knows that it can be frustrating or expensive to balance all your channels to make a productive routing node, or to make sure that even your own payments are reliable, or the payments for your customers. So I thought about, like when I learned how to run my own Lightning node, I looked at all of the available information online about how to balance channels, and I decided to do the direct opposite. Okay, so PureSwap makes some people mad because I have some assertions about like these other ways of balancing channels like rely largely on multi-hop, which can be good or bad. But I think that a major problem of multi-hop is that by design, you're not supposed to know the balance of other people's channels that are more than one hop away from you. And quite often, you might be improving your own balance, but at the expense of someone else that may not know better. And you're really moving the problem to someone else. This is also why, so who here has tried a circular rebalance back to yourself? Yeah. And like, you know how often that works, right? And like, if it does work, it's because like literally someone else like doesn't know better, usually, because because the people doing this are trying hundreds and thousands of attempts to really take someone else's liquidity at a lower cost than what they're able to use it for. The other reason that I'm cautious about advocating multi-hop balancing is that in the case of atomic swaps, it's common to lock the entire multi-hop route with some people call it a HODL invoice. So like that's creating opportunity costs for other people where that amount of the channel capacity is not available for normal routing for quite a while. For these reasons, PureSwap went with a totally opposite design. We explicitly support only a swap between you and your channel partner. So PureSwap is enabling any node that opts in, and right now we have implemented for CLN and LND to be its own swap provider. And you should be able to add to your configuration, like what is your swap policy. Like currently, it's more simplistic than that, but I'll get more into that. So if it is only between you and your channel partner, then you have absolute knowledge about what the channel balances are. And if you're the one requesting it, then you're probably doing it because it's like, oh, this channel's been stuck 100% this way for a long time. Like maybe it'll be more productive the other way, or at 50%. No, so we, in the example on the right, so say the yellow nodes have opted into peer swap by installing it on their node, and like maybe most of them want to bring their channel balance to 50% with their peer. Maybe this one is a mining pool, so they want to bring the balance to their side entirely to be able to pay out only in one direction. If you are a store, then you would want the balance to go the opposite way. So in a way, this could help efficiency of many openings and closings on the Lightning Network, because like if you talk to like large store operators, I'm trying not to use brand names, but like you can think of one that sells lots of gift cards and they accept Lightning payments. Like they told me that these channels naturally get stuck with all the balance on their end, and the only thing they can do is close it because it's an opportunity cost for them to hold it open. And they'll hope that someone else will open a channel to them, but they're big enough that it's not really a problem. But what if you had a way to cheaply and reliably like swap this balance with existing channels? Like you can use on-chain Bitcoin, but there are other ways to do this. Like anything, okay, I have a slide about this later. Okay, so it's simple, it's single hop. Who here has heard of custom message? Okay, so custom message is like a, you're able to send and receive messages with only your direct peer. And like this is like set aside for future use or for literally custom software that you plug into your Lightning node. And that's different from Onion Message, which is multi-hop. So I believe because peer swap is single hop only, you're not paying anyone else like a routing fee. It can't fail because of like someone else's channels being unavailable. That this is a reliable and lowest cost way to balance your channel. Now, there were major drawbacks to this in that everyone has to opt in. But that makes it decentralized. Like it's really between you and your channel partner what policy and what types of swaps you allow. Like, and it's between you. So there's no gatekeeper, there's no central market, there's no third party that is collecting data or collecting rent. So that's the good parts. Now, I also suggest that this is beneficial in that you could reduce your overall hot wallet risk. You don't need massive channels anymore. You could have a lot of productive routing with large channels instead of massive channels, and then you refill them over and over again. And that could reduce the cost of capital, or you could deploy the available Bitcoin that you do have to more destinations. I feel that this gives nodes that opt into it a competitive advantage as a result. And like the way that we design things at Blockstream, we want things to be decentralized. So this is one of the things. I also applaud Lisa's liquidity ads, which is another decentralized approach. Yeah. Now, this last point, nearly all of the advice online for the past year or more about how to balance your channels is that you have to open more channels. And it's like you don't necessarily need to. My suggestion is you should open new channels if a frequent payment destination or source is too many hops away. Otherwise, you and many of your peers have other ways to fix your problem now. And you do so in a way without affecting anyone else or taking advantage of other people. Like this was a picture last year somewhere on Twitter, they were making a different point, but I think that if you enable every node to become its own swap provider, then the overall Lightning topology could be a lot more flat and become more like this across the network. Here is a basic comparison between like balancing solutions, like things like is it decentralized? How reliable is it? People will debate some of this, or like, will this reveal all of your UTXOs, or only some of them? There are now like multiple markets in which you can buy incoming channels from. Like, is there a name for that now? I don't know.
Liquidity markets.
Yeah, okay. And there are now multiple markets that will broker multi-hop swaps for you. So I hope that liquidity ads and peer swap can give you more tools in a fully decentralized way that you can even use in parallel with these like liquidity markets of buy channels or the multi-hop submarine swap methods that are popular today. So I'm going to skip over most of these details, but like here's the mini script used for the on-chain transaction. There's one on-chain transaction for a commitment, and then you wait for enough confirmations to avoid double spend, and then it can be spent. This will eventually change to tap script after CLN has taproot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for the wallet.
2 weeks?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Okay. So all of this information is on the GitHub Elements project / PeerSwap. Okay, so by the way, Elements project is Blockstream's like things that we intend to be open source infrastructure that will out-survive Blockstream. And we want the community and industry as large to work on. That's why we put it there and not under the Blockstream GitHub. So other things here are like our Elements general purpose blockchain platform, the CLN implementation, and like various other like libraries and things that are of general purpose for all sorts of other projects. So under the PeerSwap GitHub, I'll point out that you can find the specification that is pretty detailed, and I learned this only recently that GitHub will actually generate diagrams for you. Like, it's pretty cool. So here's a state machine for the different swaps, for the different swap scenarios, and using the specification and the state machine, I've heard from the Eclair Lightning implementation and LDK, they're both interested in implementing interoperability. And Let me get back to the slides here. Okay. So we hope to get the first stable release out before September. Like now, we have a few dozen mainnet nodes that are running this. There are a lot of fixes flying through right now, and I actually broke it last night. And because it's decentralized, I can't ask the other side, hey, like do exactly this. Like I have to wait for them. But some of those that are very interested have very large nodes, and they're waiting for specific features that will probably come in the next version of the protocol spec. So, like now we have multiple teams from multiple companies that are like that want different features in the next version of the spec. The most requested is the options for popular nodes to charge a premium for a swap. Like you want the option to charge for a premium, especially because it creates an opportunity cost for you, like one way or the other. And like usual, like example, okay, you're familiar with zero fee routing? Like people, he charges for incoming capacity from him, and currently he charges for channels that opens from him like to you. But with this, there would be another way to refill those channels where he takes on the opportunity cost again, and then he's paid for it, but without opening and closing channels. So there are multiple larger, more popular nodes that want it for exactly that reason. There needs to be like more negotiation steps in the automated protocol when you request a swap, so that people like can set like how much they're willing to pay, and it won't overpay and things like that. So if you're interested in taking part of the future standards discussions, we'll be having meetings, and there will be drafts of the like next proposed protocol, and eventually there will be more interoperable implementations. So currently there are 2 swap methods that are implemented. Now, this being decentralized and opt-in, like it's entirely between you and your channel partner which swap methods you support. So if you want to do Bitcoin main chain only, it's fine. If you want to use the evil block stream, extremely unpopular liquid Bitcoin, yeah, don't tell anyone because it's very cheap and fast as long as it's unpopular. Yeah. I could show a little demo. So here are example commands to do a swap. So like first you will list your peers, and then it'll show you output like I have this many sats on this side, I have this many sats on this side, and then it'll also give you a ratio so that you can look at one number. So it's like 0.05 is mostly their side, 0.95 is mostly mine, on my side, I think. Okay, then I get the short ID and the amount that I want to swap from that, and then I plug it into a swap request, and then I can, and then I say which type of swap I want, and if that peer supports that swap request, and they have enough available, in this case, on-chain funds in a UTXO, then they will accept and begin the swap. And then, okay, I'll get back to that. Okay, so here is the opening channel or the opening transaction on the Liquid Explorer. And the amounts on Liquid are encrypted only where the sender and receiver can see it. So that's one of the benefits of doing swaps this way, aside from it being a very unpopular network. Okay. Shh. Okay. CLN has a slightly different format in showing the short channel IDs. So we have this quirk that you can tell what the other node is running because it shows up in their format, and it doesn't bother the peer swap code, but we decided to keep this way because it's nice to see, maybe. Okay, so one last thing about peer swap, you can have the swap method be pretty much anything that that in the course of an atomic swap reveals a pre-image. So like one of the other projects at Blockstream, who here has read about, I can't remember the name, Elsirian?
Pediment?
Yeah, Fediment. Yeah. So it's like a massive federation. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that's another example of like a very fast and efficient way that may be even cheaper than LBTC to refill your Lightning channels, like without burdening the Bitcoin main chain. Now, other people have ideas of implementing like actual trade with this, but then it gets more complicated because then you need, like a market maker, you need a market book, you need to deal with the free option problem because you're trading one thing for another thing. So good luck with that. If you want to build that, the protocol gives you the option to plug that in, and we welcome you to attend the specification meetings. But like that's not an easy thing.
I did want to ask actually on that. So it seemed like in the patch notes of like the next of the stable version, you were saying that you can have like two swaps. Is that kind of what you're talking about?
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. No, that's different. Okay. Okay, so one of the like opposite of everything else designs of peer swap is that peer swap only will swap when you have perfect knowledge of the channel balance, so that you have no surprises. So that's one of the reasons why it does like custom message single hop only. Now, like say you're the left node and I'm the right node, and there's a node between us that doesn't support peer swap. With onion message, we know the balances exactly, so it could have the same benefits. Yeah. Yeah.
How do you know the balances exactly? Is it possible for Bob, in the example where Alice, Carol, and Bob, is it possible for Bob to send you an onion message saying, I have 0.9 Bitcoins and Carol has 0.1, but then he changes it so that now he has 0.8 and Carol has 0.2, and then you get a surprise?
Yeah, it's less reliable, and if someone is intentionally griefing, then, like at worst, like someone is wasting transaction fees. So that's why a lot of care needs to be put into a specification so that the incentives are aligned. That we've not really worked on this use of possible future swap type. Yeah.
I had another question. Let's just say that there was another person, maybe Dan or something, I don't know, and he was doing peer swap, but maybe in two different wallets or in some way that they're not topologically connected in the network. Could me, you, and him be able to do peer swaps on things that are not on balances that are not directly connected? So it's not like Alice, Carol, and Bob there, but it's like you have a channel opened here and somewhere.
I think you're talking about having one on-chain transaction for multiple swaps or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the benefits of Loop, actually. They're able to coordinate that sort of thing. It's certainly possible to design that type of protocol for a decentralized thing. And if someone wants to work on that, then great. But yeah, I think people should use both. And there's benefits of one or the other. Yeah. Okay, I have a different topic. Okay, so right now people are using pure swap at the command line. Next comes, if there are 3 teams implementing pure swap UIs, and this is the point where it becomes to be more usable to end users. But I really intend on pure swap to be more of a back-end thing, or something that the LSP decides to do for you as part of the, it's the LSP's job to hide the complexity from you, right? And they charge a fee for that service. So here's a mock-up of what's coming, but there's 2 other, the popular UIs will have pure swap within the next few months, I think. Yeah. Okay, so other topics. I've worked on Linux for a long time. I've been watching what's popular, on Lightning Twitter, and kind of shaking my head, oh, that's not safe, or oh, that's not maintainable, or oh, that hardware, oh boy, okay. So first, to talk about security. Your Lightning node is secure. How well maintained is your Linux distro? And if you're using, let's call it those appliance OS distributors to make it easy for end users that don't use a command line, you download this thing and you put it on your own hardware or on the cloud. And they make it point and click easy to use, but how well do they maintain it? They are a Linux distributor and an open source software packager, and you are their customer and they're responsible for the upgrades. And I'm not going to name names, but some people make mistakes. And if you're a well-funded startup with millions of dollars raised, you really can't afford to mess this up. I'm going to leave it at that. Okay, but it goes beyond how well tested the upgrades are, or how well you actually push updates to your users. Everything comes from, your ability to secure the machine comes from the Linux kernel, and everyone in this industry, Blockstream included, we are not in the in the operating system business. Like, you do not want to be debugging kernel driver issues. You do not want to be in the business of doing QA testing of the latest kernel plus user space upgrades to get security. There are others that have been doing this for decades. I work for one of them. Like Red Hat and Fedora has hundreds of paid engineers that do this. And they have thousands of volunteers that try every upgrade, and like everything that goes through there is like, so Fedora, I'm a little biased, but Fedora is the best maintained distribution on the planet. Because of that reason, that like they were so profitable and they were able to hire so many full-time employees to maintain all that. And like you, a Linux you, a Bitcoin or Lightning company, like should be focused on payment features and reliability of that, and that's it. And you should be relying on the experts in the operating system to do their part. So it is possible to take the QA-tested, battle-hardened kernel, the exact binary from Red Hat or Fedora, and to run it on your Lightning node hardware. But it turns out that this is not very common in the Lightning or in the Bitcoin, host your own node or at home or your small business. Like, this does not resemble what people are recommended or what's marketed. Let's see. In particular, Raspberry Pis are not securable, and they are toy-grade hardware. I'm kind of cringing when I saw companies selling it from a few years ago. It's like, whoa, like you know that this thing has like a 40 megabyte code delta from the mainline kernel. They're never going to mainline it, and as a result, they can't deploy security updates very often. And like the operating systems that ship for the Raspberry Pi do not update even the user space that often. On top of that, because they the cost is so low for the board, like before Corona, like $40 or even lower. They necessarily had to cut corners to get costs down, and like what. Okay, now I'm talking about not only Raspberry Pi, but like also Rock Chip, and lots of other like things in that that compete in that space. Things that I heard from like developers is, oh, I have this Rock 64. It's fine until it gets hot. But then Grubel's, his Rock 64 works fine, but it's going 100% on all four cores. Like the quality of this is random, and like companies selling this like are not like doing burn testing. Like one company that considered selling them bought 10 and found that only 2 of them were reliable, like running with all cores, and like like the other 8 of them had random crashes, like whenever they got busy. And this is normal for this grade of hardware. And like you do not want to deal with a customer service nightmare of selling this type or this grade of hardware. Like at most, if you are a distributor of like Lightning nodes, software and point-and-click interfaces, like you do not want to worry about the hardware at all. Like your job is only the software. So,
is anyone out there running one of these systems?
yeah.
All right. I hope the message has been heard here.
Okay, but I have good news. Okay. Okay, and there was even more bad news. I'll get to the good news, okay, but there's more bad news, okay. It turns out most people have no idea how bad Flash is. Like, did you know, like, if you read the spec sheet for like, all of you are using consumer grade Flash. I read the spec sheet for industrial grade Flash, and this is what it said. At 40C, what that's, I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit. 105. Okay. But like, that's not that hot. And if you leave something in your car, it's far more fucked than this. Like, here is your data retention for Flash that's not powered. And nearly everything you have is TLC or QLC, which is far worse. So don't do that. Now, if it's powered and you have a good Flash controller, what it does is that it periodically reads it, and it's able to detect, like, it's getting towards corrupted, but it's not corrupted yet, and then it rewrites that before it's a problem. So, like, if you have good Flash controllers and you paid more money for the Flash, that's why it costs 10 times as much as the other thing from Alibaba. Okay, but so in the news, Tesla's screen, like, computer system and everything, like, would die because of this. Or did you know that pretty much all SD cards and eMMC, that's the one that's soldered onto these boards, have a minimum of 4 megabyte erase block size. So if you write even a single bit, it will probably erase an entire 4 megabytes. So the write amplification and the life of your Flash is far worse than you think.
5 minutes.
Yeah. Okay. Huh?
I said 5 minutes.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so a few years ago, like, I actually tried to design, okay, it's not this. I tried to design the perfect lightning board, and, like, I wanted things like, okay, RAID 1 disks and ECC memory, and it had to have enough memory. And then, like, I saw in a group chat today, someone was recommended this $400 thing with a case with 1 terabyte of Flash. It's like, okay, that'll work, but it has 4 gigs of RAM, and it's a Raspberry Pi, so it's not going to be securable, and it will have random stability. So it turns out there is a way for you to spend a tiny amount of money and get reliable hardware that's far more powerful, and it is eBay. Okay, and, like, I only learned about this recently. Like, there's this thing called eBay Refurbished, where they got Allstate to cover a 1-year warranty on anything sold this way. It's probably a bad idea for the insurer, but that means that you're probably getting, like, an expected level of quality if you buy these things. So I've been using ThinkPads. Like, I bought a few recently, and, like, these are actually pretty good for $200 or like $250 each. But yeah, like these things are built for reliability when they were new. And the thing with electronics is that most failures will happen, like, in the first few months. So if it survived this long and, like, someone is willing to put a new warranty on it, yeah, it's probably okay. But like, the thing is, like, I'm not going to tell you which particular ThinkPad model I recommend because I want to buy the cheap ones. But I'll give you some examples here. Like, you probably want a home Lightning node to be cheap and small. So, like, the X280 is pretty good. It's small. But the problem with a model like this is that all of its RAM is soldered on board, so you can't upgrade it. So if you're happy with 8 gigabytes, then fine. But then, a few days ago, like, someone was selling 100 of the X280s with 16 gigs soldered to the motherboard for $240 with a 1-year warranty. And I'm like, oh shit, order, okay. But that deal is gone now. But like these things pop up. But like if you know the ThinkPad model, like this one in the middle has upgradable RAM. It's kind of big and clunky, but hey, maybe that's fine for you. Like this other one has soldered RAM, but it's more thin. Okay, so, okay, and a cool thing that I didn't know until recently is that pretty much all of these ThinkPad models support a second SSD, but it's a weird size of like a 2230 or something. It's a less popular size. So you can do like redundant disks for your Lightning node channel states in this.
Seems like if your goal is small and cheap, a Raspberry Pi would be the way to go, because those devices, you know, they may not be very reliable and they may cause data loss. But if it's just an at-home node, that's probably not that big of a deal. Maybe. What do you think?
Sure.
He's arming us with information so we can make these decisions for ourselves.
Okay, so now the other way to avoid loss, even if you're using toy-grade hardware or hardware like this with a single disk, is use CLN because it makes real-time state backups really easy. And if you read the docs and to search for backup, it has this great backup guide, and it gives you like 3 or 4 different ways to do it, like one with Postgres replication, and then there's like a plugin, a older plugin method, I think. Okay, yeah.
Let's wrap up.
One of them is as simple as like specifying two different database files, and one is on a network mount. Okay, so the last thing I'll talk about is that Tor has always been bad for Lightning. Stop doing it, or make sure you're running in hybrid mode with ClearNet. It's like people make arguments like, oh, but like I can't reveal my home IP address. So a year ago, I published one possible way of doing a self-hosted VPN with a port forward. You'll see all of the source IP addresses in the back end, but then you can do DDoS filtering on the front end. And but then my guide is like kind of hard to follow. And then like today, a service launched using my recommendations that sells they sell a VPN with port forwarding. Like very similar to what I recommend, but their guide for setting up the back end is different from mine. But my guide would work on the back end using them as a front end. Okay, so okay, Tor recently has been having major problems due to a massive global DDoS. But even on a good day, last year, randomly your Tor connection like might seem to work, but then like, okay, like if when you do a lightning ping with small data, it goes through quick, but then when you do it with larger data, like I was seeing like 20 seconds, and that's like not, that breaks routing basically. So look into, like, I think there should be more competitors to it, but this is the first of the port forwarding VPN front ends. So that's it. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Warren. So next up, we have any announcements any people want to make? And we had a demo plan, but since we're running over, I think we'll bump it to the next time, if that's all right.
It's fine with me.
Sounds good. All right, does anyone have any announcements? I think we're good. All right. There's the option for the demo. Do you guys want to see the demo now? All right, it's demo time. So we'll just need a minute to set up.
Huh? Oh, I just wanted a prop. Yeah. So I upgraded the firmware of these and tested them, like if you want one, but I accept only Lightning payment.
That's it. I'll make this quick. I know everyone wants to get out of here. All right, so hi. Hi, Joker. My name is Christopher Scott, and I like to work on random things in Bitcoin and Lightning. So this was one of my first major projects that I worked on, and it is called Workbench. So essentially what it is...
Can you increase the text?
What's that?
Can you bump up the text size?
I think so. Yeah. I will do you one better. I'll make this the whole page. Boom. It is a robust, feature-rich development environment for building on top of Bitcoin and Lightning. So essentially what it is it's just an environment for spinning up your own customized Docker images with your own stack of Bitcoin, Lightning, Tor, CLBOS, PeerSwap, all the things, anything that you want. And what makes this different than some of my competitors out there, which is Polar and Sensei, is that I don't like the fact that a lot of projects will spin up like 5 different Docker environments or Docker containers just for one project. Like Samurai is really bad about that. They'll spin up like 10 different Docker containers just for one project. So everything in this stack is in one Docker container. So if you want to spin up 5 nodes, you have 5 Docker containers, and that's it. So it's very compact. It's very easy to look at if you use Portainer or anything to look at your to manage your containers, and it's very easy to navigate. So onto the demo. So essentially, all you have to do, and this is in the command line, so let me actually make this look a little prettier here. So cd. I use tmux, which I just downloaded today. I don't really use it that much. So it's Control C. Was it Control B? There we go. There's one. Control B. And then Control B. Have 4. So you have 4 containers here. So we'll save that for later. But essentially, so this is the project, if you can see it. So if you want to spin up a node in Workbench, all you really do is workbench.sh, start, and we want to start with a mining node. So this will be our first node, and this will be the one that mines blocks for our reg test network. So we'll start, we'll call him master, and we'll say miner, since we want to attach a miner to this. And I'm going to do -w for wipe, just to make sure that I didn't. I'm going to wipe its memory here, its persistent storage. And that should be all to get him started. So this will automatically configure, spin up a Bitcoin node, configure a payment address, configure a wallet, and spin up a Lightning node, start the Lightning daemon, enable a bunch of plugins that I wrote that I'll get into later, And so right now, it's transferring money from its Bitcoin wallet to its Lightning wallet internally. And I would really like to talk to you about how to make this faster. Yes.
It is a flag. You just run it in dev mode.
It is in dev mode.
Yeah, we use it for flag, big flag.
Okay.
There's like a fast gossip and there's like another one for fast flag.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's like the slowest thing about the script is just waiting for that and another transaction to open a channel, which we'll get into. And so there we go. So we have a Bitcoin node running Bitcoin D in the background. That's its process ID, Lightning D, and a little program I wrote called RegMiner, which you can configure to essentially watch the mempool and automatically mine blocks as it sees transactions into the mempool, or just do it continuously with a fuzz factor if you want to run multiple miners on your network. And that's it. So that's our master node. So we're just going to log out of him for a second. He's still running in the background. And we're just going to launch another one. So we're going to say start Alice. And Alice is going to use a faucet. And we're going to use master as a faucet. And that's about it. I mean, I'll wipe her just in case. And so we'll start Alice.
Can you increase the text size on that side?
Yeah, so how do you increase the text size in terminal on VS Code? Control plus, will that? Oh, shoot, nice. So there you go. Faucet, so with this project, essentially, you can designate what node you want to use for money. So there's this really cool feature that I built into this project called the share folder. And pretty much anytime you spin up a node, that node will dump all of its information, which you can't see because this window is so big now. But all this information about your node, your entire stack within that node, it's all dumped into this share folder in configuration files. So you have all of your information for hosting and peering for your Bitcoin node, your Lightning node. I use a plugin called Sparko, which I'll get into later. These are your Sparko keys, your login. So not only can you use this if you want to build any web applications that you want to connect to any one of these nodes, but these nodes also use this information to connect to each other. So for example, if Alice over here, Alice is broke, and I'm not setting her up with a miner, so she's not getting any Coinbase rewards. She's completely penniless. So she needs some funds, so I just set her to use the master node as a faucet. So they will behind the scenes communicate to where Alice will hit up the master node and say, hey, give me money, and then the master node will give her money. So she'll connect to the master wallet from the master faucet and get some funds, and then she'll transfer those funds. Huh?
He's a generous master.
He's a very generous master, yes, yes. He's a benevolent dictator in my Reg test network. So Alice is good to go. So she's also running now with a Lightning node, and that's pretty boring. So let's log her out, and let's start Bob, and let's start getting into some real fun. So we'll start. So we'll start Bob. Also, he's going to hit up Master Sugar Daddy here for a faucet, and we're going to open a channel with Alice. Now you can specify multiple peers. You can make this as big as your computer can handle, as many nodes as you can handle. We're going to also wipe them too. And that should be it. So now we're going to start Bob. Same deal. Starting up a node. So each one of these nodes has a Bitcoin node running in the background and a Lightning node. It's a full stack. So there's no sharing of resources behind the scenes, no trickery. Each one of these nodes is completely independent from one another. And they're all communicating through the Docker network. Although we can enable Tor and do some really fun stuff with that. So yeah, I would love to figure out how to make this part faster, because this is like the slowest part of the script. Transferring the Lightning funds, and then Bob is going to open a channel with Alice. And there he goes. So now he's opening a channel, waiting for the channel to confirm, opening a channel with Alice for 500,000 sats. I believe if I count those zeros correctly, I don't know, it's kind of blurry.
Would you bump the text up one more time?
Oh, maybe it's 5 million sats, sorry. Waiting for that to confirm. And all these transactions are being confirmed by the master node that's running in the background. There we go, it's confirmed. And all my cool ASCII text is broken because the screen's too big. But there we go. So they have a channel is confirmed, and that channel looks a little unbalanced. So we're going to rerun this startup script, which, by the way, this startup script can be run as many times as you want, and it'll automatically fix anything that's wrong. So if your node's ever in a broken state, just rerun the startup script, and it'll automatically fix everything. So one of the cool features about this is that whenever you create a channel, there is a plugin that I wrote called Auto Balancer that will automatically balance the channel between the nodes. And it uses the custom message protocol that you were talking about earlier for the nodes to basically send an invoice between each other in order to pay it and balance the channels. So now we have 2 Lightning nodes with a balanced channel between the two. And you can just keep expanding on this. Like we can put this away, we can add Carol to the mix, open a channel with Bob, start Carol. And while Carol is running in the background, we'll kind of get into some other cool stuff. Yeah, that's right. Well, I think it'll be fine. I did a preliminary wipe before this anyways. So while that's going on in the background, I am going to make use of actually having more than one terminal. And so another cool thing about Workbench is it's really easy to log into these nodes. So if I want to just log into Bob real quick, I just do that, and now I'm logged into Bob. And as you noticed, you have all these cool links here. So every one of these nodes has Sparko integrated, and if you're not familiar with Sparko, Sparko basically is a really cool way for you to have essentially almost direct RPC access to your node through the web. So because we have Sparko integrated here, every one of these nodes has their own built-in web wallet, which is pretty cool in my opinion. Let me see if I can find where that went. Yeah, so this is Bob's web wallet. And as you can see, Bob paid half of his channel amount automatically, with no intervention. And he just got paid 500,000 sats, or 2.5 million sats from Carol, because Carol just completed opening her channel and auto-balanced it with Bob. So that's what this payment is. So let's take this a step further. So now we have Alice, we have Bob, we have Carol. They all have channels open with each other. That's fantastic. We're all living in a happy family. So I created another plugin, which is part of this testing suite called Pay Traffic. And what Pay Traffic does is it builds on top of also the being able to settle invoices automatically between the nodes, and it just generates a bunch of random invoices and pays them between your nodes. So it's essentially generating random pay traffic. So if we do LCLI, pay traffic, start. This is for Carol. Carol is going to just start sending random invoices, and they're going to get paid automatically, and that is not fair to Bob. So let's log into Bob and make sure Bob is doing the same thing, because he needs to also get some free sats. I might be. Thank you. So then that's going to start, and that started, and then it's really easy to log in between these two nodes. Alice, and we'll start pay traffic here. There. So now pay traffic's running in the background. So now, if we, again, just open this free web wallet that we get from Sparko, courtesy of Fiat Jeff. Thank you, Fiat Jeff. You'll see that now there's going to be all these random invoices going back and forth. And this is happening across all 3 nodes. They're all just randomly sending invoices to one another. And so if you're building a web app and you want to hook into a lot of the events that are happening behind the scenes, for example, let me just show you what this looks like. So you're going to see all of these events. These are all events that are happening behind the scenes in your Lightning node. And if you want to hook into these events and do cool stuff with it, well, you need events to happen in the first place. So this is just a good way in order to automatically generate traffic going on behind the scenes. So if you want to build cool apps on top of it, you can just already have source material here. So I can go even more in depth to a bunch of other stuff that I built for this on top of it, but I want to cut it short. I will do a quick mention to not only this project, but I did a spin-off of this project called Sauron's Workbench. This is a little ominous. But so there's this really cool plugin for Core Lightning called Sauron. And what Sauron does is it builds off of two very interesting things. The first interesting thing is that Core Lightning essentially is built to allow you to replace the Bitcoin CLI backend with whatever backend you want. And the second interesting thing is that Blockstream's Explorer API just so happens to provide all of the parameters that you need to run a Core Lightning node without any sort of Bitcoin backend. So what Sauron does is essentially bridges the two. It allows you to spin up a Core Lightning node without any Bitcoin backend whatsoever. And this is, I was talking with Paul about this from Voltage, and this is like pretty much as degenerate as you can get is running Core Lightning without any backend whatsoever, completely trusting Blockstream. But it's really convenient because it allows you to just spin up nodes. And Explorer API works on testnet, and it also works on mainnet. So if you wanted to just dive into Lightning development on either of those two networks, I highly recommend it. And I did do a spin-off of Workbench called Sauron's Workbench that already has all of this integrated. And so yeah, that's about it. Any questions? If we have any time for questions. Sure.
I'm curious, has anyone tried Sauron? And there's like one or two other implementations of a alternative backend lookup thing for, yeah. Or
I was just raising my hand because I thought you were asking us to raise our hands.
So I had a node where I was traveling and the hard drive was dying, but I didn't want to take the CLN down. So this is not a good idea. But the CLN was on another disk, and there wasn't enough disk space to run a Bitcoin D there. So I tried Sauron for a while, and it seemed to work, but it caused some very serious problems. And a few of the channels ended up in a broken state, and then force closed. As far as I know, only high fees were paid, but it's not safe to use as far as I know. I heard somebody else recommend one of the other plugins is better, but I don't, yeah. You should be fully verifying your Lightning backend maybe.
Oh yeah, please do not use Sauron for production. This is completely degenerate. It's you're flying by the seat of your pants. So I would just use it for testing. I wouldn't seriously put any funds behind it. I think it's just fun. I did pull up, so this is on the Core Lightning's documentation. So if you go and you look at their documentation for plugins specifically, at the very, very, very bottom of the page, they show you essentially what commands they're calling from Bitcoin CLI and what they expect in return. So if you want to build your own backend instead of using Sauron, this is what you would need to do. And one other thing I forgot to mention, so one thing that me and Nick were working on yesterday was playing around with PeerSwap. So I actually do have a branch that I created of RegTest Workbench that has PeerSwap integrated. So you can spin up nodes, and all those nodes will have PeerSwap integrated, and you can actually do swaps in between the nodes, which is pretty fun. It just works, which is great.
So my question for you is that it's cool that you built basically, it's a Lightning world simulator.
Yeah.
Why?
Because it's really hard to do that. It's really hard to build up like a Lightning world, like a development environment. And not just a development environment that you can build web applications on top of. Like there's a lot of things that I get into. Like I have like you can do hot loading of plugins. So if you want to develop Lightning plugins, and those plugins need to be replicated across all nodes because you're essentially building like customized protocols that these nodes are going to use to communicate, like with custom message. So you just need an environment to where you're not just setting up a node, but you're setting up an environment that you're going to replicate across multiple nodes. So just the ability to be able to do that, I mean, there really just isn't anything like that on the market. So I built this.
Questions? All right. Thanks for the demo. Great project.
Thank you.
And that's it for the Austin Lightning Developers Meetup. So looking forward to next time.